Hi, I'm Megan, and this video is about how dogs learn and what needs to be in place in order for dogs to learn. So let's first talk about what needs to be in place in order for dogs to learn. The first thing would be good timing. Dogs have a 1.3 second span to relate an action to a consequence. So basically you have 1 second to let your dog know whether they've done the right thing or whether they've done the wrong thing. And when it comes to teaching your dog new behaviors, it's super important to have good timing. Clicker training is very popular. It's just a little piece of plastic. You press the button. The way that people clicker train is that you will click feed, so that the dog or any animal, cats, dolphins, anything, will learn that click equals treat, click equals reward. Click means that something good is coming. And then that click and the time between the dog did what they're being rewarded for will bridge the gap. So the dog knows exactly what they did correctly. The dog knows exactly why they're getting a treat. So you're using this by clicking for muscles in motion as a dog does something correctly and then giving them the food. Clickers can be a little bit tricky because if you're training your dog to do something new and you have a treat pouch and you have a remote collar in your hand and you've got the leash in your hand and your dog's moving around wondering what you guys are doing, a lot of people can just have a hard time clicking on time. So we like to actually just use verbal markers. We like to use the verbal marker yes for when the dog has done something correctly in place of using a clicker. So if I were teaching a dog to sit for the first time, I would ask the dog to sit, and as the butt touches the ground, muscles in motion, that's when I would say yes. I would reach into my treat pouch and I would feed my dog. And my dog's going to know that I was fed for putting my butt on the ground. That's why I got a reward. Sometimes when we're teaching sit for the first time, if you're not using a marker, as soon as the dog sits, it immediately gets back up again and you're trying to give it food. And you're not fast enough for that dog because they only sat half a second. So the marker is allowing us to capture very small things that our dogs are doing correctly and rewarding them for it. The other side of that is when your dog does something wrong. If you take the place command as example, which is send your dog to a bed and they're not supposed to come off until told free. That's how we teach it. So if my dog, if I'm teaching them place and they're on the bed and they come off of the bed, I would want to mark it with no as soon as the paws come off and touch the floor. I don't want to wait until the dogs come off of the bed, ran across the room, came all the way up to me to tell them no, because then the dog might go, am I in trouble for coming up to you? Is that why you're saying no? You want to say no as soon as the paws come off of the bed and before they've run across the room, so the dog will know why they are in trouble. Why are you giving me a pop and release on the leash or anything like that? Like, why am I being taken back to the bed? Marking no right as soon as your dog messes up will let them know where they went wrong. So marking yes and no are very important, and when you say it is very important. A good example also would be potty training. So if you walk into a room and there's poop on the floor and you punish your dog for pooping on the floor, your dog might not know it's because they pooped on the floor. They might just think you came in a bad mood. But if you see your dog pooping and you tell them no in the act and then you punish your dog or you take them outside to finish or whatever it is you do, your dog will know exactly what they did wrong. They'll know exactly why you were upset or why they got put in their crate or whatever it is that you did. So dogs are really living in the moment. The other thing besides having good timing with training would be having a motivated dog. We want the dog to want to do what we're asking them to do. We want them to enjoy the training. We want them to have the attitude of tell me what to do, ask me to do something. And the way that we get that is by making training fun and motivating. Now, we don't always get to choose what motivates our dog, but definitely treats is the first thing that is, works for most dogs, is an easy way to work with the dog, is just by using treats to motivate them. We like to use Bill Jack treats right here. So not every dog is going to be crazy about food. Some dogs are just happy to be pet and baby talked and loved on, verbal praise and petting. And then the other thing is some dogs are very motivated by toys. Like, thank you for doing a great job with that sit stay. You sat there and didn't break one time. Now I'm going to throw the ball and we're going to play for a minute, and that's the reward. So food, toys, praise can all be forms of rewards. And before you start training, it's a great idea to figure out what really motivates your dog. What is your dog really crazy about and really likes to work for? And just because you use treats while training does not mean that you'll have a dog that won't listen without food, as long as you are being careful about it and using a treat pouch and not rewarding the dog until things are completed, or unless you're using some luring to teach the dog how to do something. The last thing that should be in place would be consistency. Set rules and keep them the same for your dog. If your dog is just, tonight you're allowed on the couch because we're cuddling and watching a movie, but tomorrow when I find you on the couch, I'm going to be mad and punish you or put you in your crate or do whatever it is you're going to do to your dog. That's not very fair to the dog if they're only allowed to sometimes do some things. So we need to be clear on what are the rules, and we need to stick to those rules. And if we're going to change a rule, we should be changing the rule forever for the dog. So timing, motivation, and consistency all need to be in place in order for dogs to learn. As far as how dogs learn, a lot of people realize that dogs do learn in patterns. Repetition is key in anybody learning anything new. So we need to work with the dogs every single day on new commands until they fully understand that command. So if I start teaching a dog to sit, and I start on Monday, but then I got really busy at work and then I didn't start working again until Friday, then I'm starting from scratch with that dog. Too much time has passed. So we need to work on, training daily until the dog is fully understanding what we're asking them to do. And we also need to do it multiple times, over and over again, so that the dog is very clearly, we've painted the picture for them, they know what we need them to do. The other thing is that dogs learn in pictures, and that is usually the part that we don't think about. Many dogs do great with hand signals, like asking to sit by putting your hand up, or down by putting your hand down, or stay by doing this with your hands. But we actually prefer to not use any hand signals, and that is because I would say 99% of the time when someone asks their dog to do something, it's because they're not paying attention, or they're not listening, or they're not focused on what they need to be focused on. So I want dogs to listen to just our regular voice and know what we need them to do. So if they are, 500 feet away and I say here, they don't need to see me to know what that means. They know here means come find me. Your dog should know what everything means just by verbally saying it. And many people believe that their dog does know how to do something, and they do, but it's just that the signal that you're giving might not be the same signal that the dog is using to know what you want. And for an example, what I mean by that is, if you're at home, I want you to put your hands to your side and just in a regular monotone voice tell your dog sit. And if your dog sits, then your dog knows what sit means. But if your dog doesn't sit and they're just staring at you, try doing this. Sit, or sit, kind of move your hand around and see if your dog sits. If your dog sits then you'll know your dog doesn't know what the word sit means, but your dog does know that if your hand goes up like this and his butt touches the ground, you'll give him a piece of food. So it's very important to think about what you're doing with your body language while training your dog, how you're holding the leash, the direction you're luring with treats. Everything matters to the dog, and we just want to set them up for the best success that we can. So some of our training might seem like very nitpicky or a lot of instructions, or can be a little overwhelming at first, but I promise that you get used to it, and we do it all in order to help the dog the best that we can.